Hey guys, welcome back to another Star Wars video. So as you know, yesterday we had a brand new behind the scenes photo for Star Wars Starfighter, the Star Wars movie with Ryan Gosling coming in 2027. Star Wars fans had theories about the body of water they're on, where this might be located in universe, and there was another fan theory that I didn't talk about, that the character Ryan Gosling might be playing is a canon version of Cade Skywalker. Now, as you guys know based on comments I've made in the past, I don't really like to make these links anymore, because by and large, with only a handful of exceptions, Disney Star Wars will take archetypes and character tropes, maybe even their names, from the expanded universe, but go their own way with them, and they very rarely match the same characters from Legends. So while Ryan Gosling's character does look like Cade, the hair, the jacket, the trousers, at a time where Rey Skywalker is running about, I doubt they're gonna give us another Skywalker, a legit Skywalker from the expanded universe. I reckon Ryan Gosling is playing a new character, and as usual, we're overthinking things. So I was thinking about all of this, and just how excited Star Wars fans have been in the past, whenever they think there's going to be a familiar character in a certain show or in a film, only to end up very disappointed. It was the same with Jar Jar Narwood, Jude Law's character in Skeleton Crew. Fans thought we might see Bosk in Book of Boba Fett, Kira in Book of Boba Fett, but in the end, we hype ourselves up for nothing. Disney Star Wars goes their own way. When they do introduce aspects from the expanded universe, it's usually a name only, or a version of that character. For instance, Legends fans like to point out that Cassian Andor is very similar to Kyle Katarn. I do love Cassian though, and the reason all of this is relevant to today's video is because there is another expanded universe character who fans are expecting to see very soon, Abeloth in Ahsoka Season 2. I've peddled my own theories about her. I think there's a pretty solid chance they're gonna do something with her considering the Mortis gods, the statue of the ones on Peridea, the pretext with the world between worlds, everything we saw in the Clone Wars and Rebels, and Dave Filoni's willingness to finish the Mortis story. So I would argue that Abeloth is far more likely than Cade. However, I do want to caution you that even this is pretty far-fetched. There is nothing in any of Dave Filoni's comments, nothing in the first season that definitely says Abeloth is what we're about to see. It's logical, there's a lot of fan math and speculation that makes sense, but it's not concrete. In fact, he's barely ever mentioned her. In behind-the-scenes interviews for the Clone Wars and Rebels, he always mentioned the Mortis gods in relation to the importance of Anakin, and that might be the direction they're headed in Season 2. So while there have been all of these rumors that they found the perfect actress, that she's been cast, that it's set in stone, we need to be very cautious and aware that there is no evidence Lucasfilm is going in this direction. They might give us something very out of left field. I said this before, but how would you feel if it was related to, I don't know, Snoke? I'd absolutely despise if they did that, but our sources who know about the project have heard nothing on the Abeloth front. But if they do have her in mind, and Dave Filoni does want to connect it to a different part of the Star Wars universe, I want to propose something which I think is more realistic. You're not gonna like it. I promise you it's controversial. A lot of fans are going to say this is horrible, how dare you suggest this, but going off Dave Filoni's words, his contributions in The Acolyte, and some of the ideas he's proposed, not just on screen but off, I think there's a chance they do this. Before we get into that though, there is one final thing I want to share with you. An interview with Troy Denning, the creator of the Fate of the Jedi books, has resurfaced, and I want to share with you his comments about Dave Filoni. Dave was very much involved in the Abeloth creation process. It didn't seem like Dave cared very much about Abeloth, but he wanted her story to be consistent with the Clone Wars Season 3. But it doesn't sound as though he wanted that iteration of Abeloth making her way on screen. At least back then, things might have changed. So let me play you this clip, and then I'll tell you my theory.
We're about, I don't know, a week into it. There's something I need to tell you. He told us a little bit about the ones, and we said, oh, that sounds interesting. Sounds a lot like what we're doing with Abeloth. And then he came back and he said, well, okay, Dave says this. And, and then we said, oh, cool. Yeah, that's really cool. That ties in. Can we do this? And he said, let me check. So they had a lot of back and forth, and after over a period of about 3 or 4 weeks, we finally got enough of the story of the one. Because they didn't want to, obviously, for security reasons, they didn't want to let out more than they had to what was going on with that story arc. But I think that, and I'm reading between the lines here, but that Dave could see that, yeah, this was just naturally tying into what he was doing in a big way. And so we asked, could we do this? Can you leave us room to do this? And Dave very graciously said, yeah, we can leave you room to do that, and basically she became kind of the mother figure. And I didn't know the full backstory that he had in mind for him. And so then I decided, well, I'm going to leave a little fudge room here, which is why she became the figure that ascended.
In 2023, Dave was asked about the so-called bridge between canon and legends. He was being asked about Thrawn, but the same concept applies across the board. And to paraphrase, Dave Filoni spoke about the freedom of the expanded universe being legends. It can be cherry-picked. You can use elements which work and discard those that don't. And from this I gathered that if we do get Abeloth, it's going to be a very different version. I spoke about this just the other day. It seems like Abeloth is on Lucasfilm's radar, but I think they're going to do her very differently. And so now, with all of that being said, let me propose a controversial theory. What if we are about to see the mother of Mortis, but instead of being the version we see in Fate of the Jedi, what if she's a different mother that we've recently seen on screen? What if she is a manifestation of Mother Coral from the Acolyte, the only surviving Brendok witch, a century before the Ahsoka show? Her body is dead at this point, but she might serve a very similar purpose to Abeloth, transcending death and being able to possess. After all, my friends, the Acolyte is not getting renewed, and Leslie Headland said she made Mother Coral a Zabrak for a reason. And because Peridea has ties to ancient Night Sisters, there might be a link here. I originally thought this might just be a fun theory that's kind of like a joke, but the more I think about it, the more legit it sounds. In the expanded universe, Abeloth began humbly. She was not a Mortis god herself. She was a servant to the Ones, the mother who tended their garden, mediated peace between the son and daughter, but because she was a mortal being, she aged while they remained eternal, and the fear of losing them drove her to drink from the font of power and bathe in the pool of knowledge. The transformation gave her longevity but twisted her spirit, turning her into a monstrous, immortal entity of chaos. By comparison, Mother Coral could fit this archetype, while also giving the title of the Mother a different meaning. In the Acolyte, within her coven, Coral is not the leader. That role is given to Mother Anastasia, who was seen as gentle, spiritual, and guiding. Coral is the enforcer, the partner, the one who carries out Anastasia's will and guards their daughters with a clashing ferocity. Coral was already skeptical of the Jedi, but when Anastasia and the rest of the coven died, she lost everything. The Legends Abeloth was corrupted by her fear of being left behind by her family. Coral too, she was undone by grief and the terror of loss. In that desperation, she probably went into hiding. For all we know, she sought out other covens and might have been led to the ancient world of Peridea in the Second Galaxy, the ancient Dathomiri homeworld that was said to possess forbidden knowledge. This could be the way Dave Filoni reinterprets the story of Abeloth, and Coral becomes twisted and transforms, perhaps in an attempt to revive Anastasia. And if you're wondering, well, what's the connection between Coral and the Mortis gods? It has been implied in a couple of places that the ancient Night Sisters worshipped them and revered their duality. They believed in keeping the son and daughter in balance, or as they called them, the fanged god and the winged goddess. If Coral went to Dathomir and then Peridea, she would have learnt about them there. It's an insane theory, my friends. I'm not saying it's going to happen, I really hope it doesn't, but if Dave Filoni was going to draw from anything, this could be his way of creating a new kind of Abeloth. If Disney Star Wars canon is trying to separate itself from the expanded universe, if they want to unite the live-action shows, even though The Acolyte was controversial, this could be one way to go about it. It's a risk. It's a massive, massive risk. Given how Star Wars fans felt about the High Republic show, I don't think it's advisable, but if there were to be some kind of link, I can definitely imagine Dave Filoni doing this. And we know for a fact he himself was responsible for the Brendok witches. That is a concept he helped to shape, and because he loves Night Sisters, look at the Grey Mothers in Ahsoka, look how much they've appeared across Star Wars media, I wouldn't put it past him to have the thing calling out to Baylan be an ancient power connected to the Night Sisters. And like I said, Mother Coral never had a death, she just disappeared into midair,